Welcome to Golden Girl, a space where we dive deep into health, healing, connection, and community. I'm your host, Becca Golden, and this podcast is all about sharing and documenting my journey. Each episode, we'll discuss topics like health and wellness, what I'm learning in therapy, work-life balance, relationships, community, and all the ways I strive for more aliveness and presence every day. Let's dive in. Welcome back to another episode of Golden Girl. For today's episode, I figured I could just walk you guys through the different things that I'm doing for my health to support my body every week, every day. There are so many practices that I'm doing right now in this current era of my health and healing journey, the things that are helping support me and keeping me functional. A huge part of my healing process involved me taking my health into my own hands and really discovering so much about my body that I didn't know I had the ability to affect. There were so many things happening in my body that I had no idea I was impacting just by various things in my life, different types of lifestyle choices and behaviors that I had no idea were impacting my health as a whole. And in learning that, I have found that really empowering to just learn about what different choices might do to my health overall. And so a big part of this podcast is me just sharing about those things. And it's not to preach about what somebody should and shouldn't do. It's really so that everyone can be making informed decisions, because for so much of my health story, I had no idea what I was doing wrong, and my health was just falling apart and I didn't know why. And so I really want to make sure that I use this podcast as a way of sharing this knowledge that I've learned about how to take care of my body, because knowledge is really powerful. And when you don't know these things about your own body, then you're not making informed decisions. All right, so to begin, all the things that I'm doing every week to support my health kind of fall into various categories for what general processes in my body they're helping to support, but the body is connected, so everything that I'm doing is supporting all the rest of the things. But I would put them into categories like, I would say sleep/circadian health is one of them, and then food, nervous system, detoxing my body, detoxing my environment, and then lipedema. So I probably could categorize them differently. Like, a lot of the lipedema stuff is just reducing inflammation, and a lot of the nervous system stuff could be a wide range of things because your nervous system impacts everything. But let's talk about the first category of things. So like the number one thing that I'm doing that I can tell makes such a tremendous difference in how I function, that is like the foundational thing that drives every other process in my body, is sleep. And I know that's such a big topic. Everyone's like, oh yes, of course, sleep. We all know we need to get better sleep. But when I really, really focus on optimizing my sleep, it makes a tremendous difference in everything else in my health. And actually, let me just be really honest and transparent right now. Sleep is the number one thing that helps me the most, and it's also the thing that I struggle with the most. Out of every other item on my list of things that I do for myself, sleep is the hardest for me. And that's because I've never been a morning person. I've been a night owl my whole life. Like, when I was 5 years old, I wanted to stay up all night and sleep all day. So I've always been a night owl, and it feels like it's ingrained in my blood. It feels like it's such a core part of who I am. But I know that having good circadian health improves so much of my experience in my body and my symptoms. So it does feel like it goes against the grain of who I am when I do it. It feels so foreign to me. But when I do get into the habit of it, it does feel really, really good. It's just, I never want to do it. So right now, I'm not doing the best job at this, but I would say being really consistent with sleep, consistently getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night does wonders for my health. Circadian health is such an important part of your body's health and well-being because your body gets signals from light to know what time of day it is, which helps your body release the right hormones to regulate things like your metabolism, your energy levels, etc. So in the morning, your body has a cortisol spike, and that gives you your energy to get you out of bed. And throughout the day, your body is going to release different hormones to signal hunger and to signal the release of melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone. Leptin is a hormone. So like your body gets signals from light and it interprets the light signals to understand what time of day it is. So if you are exposing your body to bright light after sunset, it could be kind of confusing to your body. It might be telling your body that it's not nighttime, so it doesn't need to be getting ready to be tired and fall asleep and stuff. If you've ever gone camping and you're away from bright lights and the sun goes down, you might have noticed that you had a really easy time falling asleep compared to when you're maybe at home in your bed and you're having trouble falling asleep and you just want to be scrolling or something. So if you can avoid bright light after sunset, then your body will know that, okay, it's dark out. It's time to start getting ready for bed. This is evening time. We can get ready to start releasing the hormones that make me a little sleepy and get me ready to go to sleep. So some of the ways that you can support your circadian health. If you can watch the sunrise every morning, that alone will totally change so much of your health outcomes. It will change so much about everything in your life. Like I would really encourage you to try to just spend 1 week watching the sunrise every morning and see the difference that it makes in any aspect of your life. You will notice a cascade of improvements. Like you will feel maybe more motivated, more energized. Like if you watch the sunrise in the morning, it tells your body that it's morning, and then your body is going to be primed to be getting ready for bed 12 hours after that. So I think watching the sunrise every morning is going to be a game changer for you. The things that I do in my house that it's just like a really easy thing to do is make sure you're not using any bright lights after sunset. As soon as the sun goes down, I don't have any lights in my house that aren't red. I also wear red light glasses at night so they block out any blue light. I change my phone to red light at night. There's a little trick on your phone that you can do that you just like press the side button 3 times and it changes to be red, which is pretty handy. And I also put my phone on airplane mode at night and I charge it in a different room. And I removed all Wi-Fi sources from around my bedroom. I would love to start turning off my Wi-Fi at night, but I haven't gotten that far yet. So sleep is just such a huge one for me. If I am going to bed at the same time every night, waking up at the same time every morning, watching the sunrise every morning, watching the sunset every evening, not using bright lights after sunset, and being really consistent with that, everything in my health improves so much. So those are all things that I do when I am prioritizing my circadian health. You don't have to do any of that, or you could try to do some of it if you don't already, but sleep is the most important thing that I could be doing for myself right now. And like I said, it is just the hardest one. So we talked about sleep, circadian health. Another thing is making sure that your environment is somewhere that you can be healing in. And this was something that was very, very gradual, but detoxing your environment, I had no idea the level of endocrine disruptors that were in my environment until I really started focusing on it. And I've always been a pretty good, like non-toxic type of a person, I thought, because I'm just really sensitive to fragrance and scented stuff. So I've never had like scented trash bags, or scented laundry detergent has always given me rashes. So I always thought I was pretty good about having a non-toxic environment. But honestly, as I've become more aware of this, it's become harder and harder to ignore. And that's because the toxins in our environment have become harder to avoid. So something that I did as part of my health and healing journey is I got rid of all of my plastic Tupperware. I switched to glass Tupperware only. I also started putting more thought into the types of materials that my clothes were made out of. I switched to all non-toxic makeup. I never use anything scented in my house. So that means like candles in the winter. That means your pumpkin spice candle. Like I can't use scented candles because it's just too high of a risk that there's endocrine disruptors in there. Any kind of synthetic fragrance is an endocrine disruptor. And if you don't know what endocrine disruptor means, your endocrine system is like all your hormones. So an endocrine disruptor is going to disrupt your hormones basically. So cleaning up your environment is really important. I mentioned this in a previous episode, but before I went on birth control, I had endometriosis. And throughout the course of being on birth control and then after stopping birth control, I really put in a lot of effort to clean up my environment, get rid of all the plastic water bottles I was drinking out of. I use really clean brands for cleaning products, makeup products, hair products, like anything that you're putting onto your body or anything that you're putting onto stuff that your body touches or breathes in. Like laundry detergent is a huge offender. Laundry detergent has so much toxic stuff in it. And the average person is able to detox whatever is, oh God, that's a whole other rant. Oh boy. I have another soapbox to get on. Actually, humans have detox processes built into your body. Back in the day, people used to be able to drink a lot more and wake up without crazy hangovers. Like think about hundreds of years ago, people were drinking all the time. Like the human body, my theory about why so many people can't really tolerate drinking so much anymore is that we can only handle so much of a toxic burden. And now that we're being completely inundated with toxins all over the place, everywhere you look and breathe and touch, like everything is made out of stuff that's toxic to your body. My theory is that your body is trying to eliminate so many of those toxins and it just simply cannot keep up with the demand with alcohol being added to that. So if you have scented trash bags, scented candles, you have plastic cookware, you're like eating non-organic foods, tons of gluten, like there's so many things that maybe you're putting into your body. And then on top of that, alcohol, like that's just so much for your body to take on. So people have different capacities for detoxing. And like I personally know that I have this genetic mutation that makes me have a less efficient ability to detox. And other people might be really efficient at it. And so maybe they can have all this stuff in their house and it doesn't bother them. For me personally, I have to make sure I don't have any of this toxic stuff in my house. And I might have the exact same outcome as somebody who's a lot more efficient at detoxing and has a lot more toxic stuff around them. So in talking about all this stuff, it doesn't mean you can't have these things. It just means if you're having mysterious health symptoms and you have all this stuff around you, maybe you could give it a shot. Maybe you could try removing some of this stuff and see if it helps. So I think I didn't complete my other thought. So before I went on birth control, I used to have endometriosis. I mentioned this in a previous episode. And over the course of being on birth control, I started removing a lot of the endocrine disruptors from my environment. And when I went off of my birth control, my endometriosis never came back. And some people say that endometriosis is caused from so many endocrine disruptors in your environment. Like that's possible. And the fact that it never came back really tells me that something about my environment, something about the level of inflammation that I used to have in my body allowed endometriosis to happen. So anyway, so this category is just your toxic load from your environment around you. This includes your air quality, your water quality, your food quality, anything that's scented, any kind of like added fragrance, any added chemicals that you're exposing yourself to, anything that's in your makeup products or even like your deodorant, things that you're using on your body or your clothing or any kind of textiles that you're putting your body on, any of your cleaning products, your personal care products, your furniture, like things that are off-gassing that you buy online, all of that contributes somewhat to your body's toxic load. And if you know me, you know that I build most of my furniture myself, and it's hard to find non-toxic building materials, and that's really tough. I went to buy paint the other day, and they have these fragrance booster packets that you can add to your paint to have scented wall paint. Nobody needs scented wall paint. Nobody should be buying that product. That product should be taken off the market, actually, because nobody needs it. If you want scented walls, I have so many other questions for you, but that's for another time. So I'm not saying that everybody has to like live off the grid in a non-toxic everything environment. You can make your own choices. If you want an air freshener in your house, go for it. But I don't have anything scented in my house, and that has made a big difference in my health and recovery. So the next thing is going to be detoxing. There are so many practices that I do to support the detox processes in my body. And I mentioned this before, but I have a genetic mutation. It's called MTHFR, and that stands for methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. And it makes my body a little bit less efficient at detoxing things than other people's bodies. I don't know a whole lot about the rest of my genetics. It's very possible that I have other genes in my DNA that make it harder for me to detox other things like the mycotoxins from mold. But it doesn't really matter what my DNA says at the end of the day, because I already know how my body experiences these things. And I can see a difference in my health and how I feel when I'm regularly doing some of these detox practices. So your body has a lot of detox processes built into it already. And theoretically, if we weren't living in this day and age, we would be eating foods that are naturally detoxing things. We would be supporting our bodies in ways that would naturally allow us to detox. But that's not the society that we live in, and that's just not the world that we live in anymore. And that's okay. It's just knowing that gives you more power to structure your lifestyle differently so that you are detoxing anything that could be harmful to you later. So the number one way that people detox is by having consistent bowel movements. If you are not having at least one bowel movement every day, you should really, really, really make that a priority to look into. I'm pretty sure that's technically considered constipation. If you're not having one bowel movement a day, then you're missing out on a lot of detoxing that's supposed to be happening in your body. So you might want to deal with that. I always have a bowel movement every day, but there's a lot of other detoxing that I have to do to support my body. So some of the things that I do regularly to support that are taking a binder. The binder is basically like a clay powder thing that I mix into water at night, and it attracts heavy metals and mycotoxins and other types of toxins that I don't want in my body. This powder basically like magnetically attracts it. You can think of it like a magnet. It attracts all these toxins to it and then holds on to it and then puts it through my GI tract so that I can excrete it out through the bowel movement. So that's one way that I'm detoxing. I'm also doing a lot of infrared sauna. I mentioned this before. Infrared sauna is so good for detoxing from mold. And so usually I'll take a binder before I get into the sauna, and then I'll go in the sauna. I try to do sauna for an hour every week. And then something I do every night, no matter what, is a castor oil pack. There's not a lot of science to back up castor oil packs, but I feel a tremendous difference when I put on castor oil, and I can talk about what a castor oil pack is in a future episode. Another thing is I focus on my lymphatic health a lot now, and I never used to do that. So doing things like making sure that you're getting movement regularly throughout your day. I jump on a little rebounder. A rebounder is like a little mini trampoline, and I get on the rebounder a couple times a week to just get my lymphatic system moving. I do lymphatic drainage massages on myself, and I go to a professional lymphatic drainage massage therapist. I do something called dry brushing, which is helpful for your lymphatic system. It's helpful for moving toxins. I do cupping. I don't drink alcohol. I get really good sleep. That's good for detoxing. I also make sure that I don't eat any synthetic food additives, no gums, no emulsifiers, no seed oils. I really try to eat so clean. So food is another category, but on the detoxing, the last thing I'll say is that I also sometimes do intermittent fasting, which for women and menstruators, you need to be a little bit more careful that you don't really mess up your hormones from intermittent fasting at the wrong times of your cycle. But I have had a lot of success in detoxing and reducing inflammation from intermittent fasting, but I only do it when my body is feeling up for it and when it's in my follicular phase. So I can talk about that in more depth during a detox focused episode. And then fasting is a good segue into the next category, which is food and nutrition and blood sugar regulation. So that time when I found out that I had the genetic mutation MTHFR, I also found out that I was pre-diabetic, but I didn't really think much of that. And the doctor didn't really follow up with me. And so I didn't really even remember that I was pre-diabetic, and I didn't know what it meant or care. So I went a long time having really dysregulated blood sugar. And for me, that manifested into tons of inflammation and binge eating disorder. So I had binge eating disorder for many years. And then around like 2016, somebody told me about keto. And at the time, it was not very well known. Like nobody knew what keto meant. And in 2016, it wasn't very well known at that time, but somebody explained it to me and I was like, whoa, that sounds really cool. And I was trying to lose weight at the time. So I started eating keto. And for the first time in my life, I didn't even have the urge to binge. When I was in ketosis and when I was eating according to this keto lifestyle, like really low carb, really high fat, moderate protein at the time, it was the first time in my adult life that I could actually sense when I was full or when I was hungry. And I didn't even know that before that point that I couldn't sense those things, but that was probably that should have been my first inclination that I had some blood sugar imbalance, but I didn't really know what blood sugar meant or what that was. So I basically reversed my prediabetes by going on to keto, which is amazing. And I stayed on variations of keto eating for about 7 years. And I didn't know that that was putting a lot of strain on my adrenals at the time, but it did help manage my blood sugar and reversed prediabetes. So that's pretty cool because I'm not pre-diabetic anymore. I was not exercising at this time in my life. Like I had never exercised consistently before, and doing keto is not fueling your body very much to do a lot of physical activities, I would say. Especially as a woman, I don't think keto was the best way for me to manage my health long term, but it was a short-term solution to my blood sugar issues. So when I started to lift weights, I needed to fuel my body differently to be able to support that type of energy exertion and to support my recovery and all sorts of other things. So I started trying to eat a lot more carbs, and my blood sugar went all over the place. And that was really not good for my blood sugar for a while, but I started to take a supplement called inositol that helped me with my blood sugar. I started to just learn more about blood sugar and how when your blood sugar is spiking, that can cause inflammation in your body. I started to learn how to better support my blood sugar and how to blunt the spikes a little bit more so that I wasn't constantly all over the place. Some of the things that I do for that are taking some digestive bitters like 20 minutes before I eat a meal, making sure that I have at least 30 grams of protein with each meal, making sure that I never have what some people refer to as a naked carb. That means not eating a carb without a source of protein and fat with it. I also noticed that in my Whoop data, I have a Whoop wristband, and I noticed that my Whoop data kind of shows me when I have a spike in my blood sugar, which is so crazy. They don't market it as that, but I actually do notice a spike in my Whoop stress levels that correlates with what I would imagine as a blood sugar spike. And I can sometimes feel it too. Like I can feel my heart rate changing. And sometimes if I eat a pretty carb heavy meal, I'll make sure that I do some form of physical activity right after. And I've gotten better at adjusting my food intake to meet the needs of my energy exertion. So if I know I'm going to be lifting weights the next day, I'll eat more carbs the night before than if I know I'm about to go on a road trip or something. If I know I'm going to be sedentary for the next 24 hours, then my body might not need as many carbs as if I'm going to be lifting weights and needing to exert a lot of energy and then repair my muscles and rebuild all the things. So managing my blood sugar has been huge. And in terms of the actual food that I am consuming, I'm very aware of the micronutrients that are in the foods. I'm focusing a lot less on macronutrients and a lot more on micronutrients. So making sure that everything I eat is very nutrient dense. I pretty much only eat whole unprocessed foods right now, and I will say that's really not sustainable long term. It is exhausting to cook everything for myself. I mean, everything. Like, I cook everything from scratch and it is so exhausting. So the way that I'm eating is really not sustainable right now, but it is helping me. So right now, I don't eat anything processed. I don't eat gluten. I don't eat dairy. I definitely don't eat any seed oils. No seed oils ever. Still eating pretty low carb, relatively low histamine most times of the month, depending on my cycle. And really just nothing processed. I try to eat all organic. I try to eat things that are in season. I try to eat locally and eat things that are from local farmers. And I have really good sources of protein that I get from a local place in Austin that's like a farmer's market store, and they are the best. I try to make sure all of my food is from regenerative farming and ideally like local family-owned farms, things like that. Lately, I've been trying to stay away from any kind of flour because I have this theory that like things that are finely ground up into any kind of finely ground powder is not good for my body. I think it causes me to have a blood sugar spike too, like an unhealthy blood sugar spike. So I've been staying away from any kind of flour, even like almond flour, cassava flour, things like that. So the reason that I'm doing a lot of that is because of inflammation. So I noticed that when I would eat gluten, I was getting joint pain. And I noticed that when I ate dairy, I was getting an increase in my lipedema symptoms. So personally, I'm cutting those things out until I can reduce the rest of the inflammation in my body enough to add them back in. But I do think that it's really not healthy to have a super restrictive diet all the time. And I can confidently say that it is not at all sustainable to eat this way all the time forever. So at the moment, there are seed oils in everything, everywhere. I cannot go out to eat without being exposed to seed oils, and that's really annoying. But it is giving me a lot of opportunity to learn about the nutrient profiles of a lot of these foods and make sure that I am really giving my body enough variety to help feed my gut microbiome, because I'm currently working on building up my gut microbiome. And I will say, like, okay, with the food, like, I'm just so sensitive to processed foods. If I eat seed oils, my body starts to crave all sorts of processed stuff. And I know this because I've been exposed to seed oils without knowing it before. Like, I didn't think I had any seed oils, and then I started having ravenous cravings, and it turns out that they started putting seed oils in the lentil chips that I used to buy. So, like, I know, I can tell. I know it sounds crazy, but I can tell when like my body just suddenly starts to crave things like crazy, and then it's so much harder to say no to things that I know are bad for me. So the more that I can stick to being healthy with these choices for me, the easier my life becomes, because it's so much easier for me to not want to eat the thing that's processed. But if I get off the rails, like I went on a work trip recently, and the only thing available, like I had to eat what they were providing us. I didn't have my kitchen to pack my own lunch. Like, I was traveling. It's so hard when you're traveling. And there was nothing I could do, and I had to eat something. So I just ate what they gave us. And by the time I made it back home after the trip, like, I felt so awful. And that's just because I'm really sensitive to this stuff. And my body already is really overwhelmed with the toxic burden that I have at the moment. So that's why I'm trying to remove all these toxins from my life, because for me, every little bit counts. If I can get 8 to 9 hours of sleep one night, maybe when I eat a seed oil or something by accident, it won't throw me off the rails. Like if I can keep all of these things in line for as long as possible, it's just building up my resilience that much more. But for the average person, they really don't need to do this probably. Like most people are going to get by and be perfectly functional without having to be this strict. But for me, this is what I'm choosing to do for myself because I want to feel good. And because I want to feel good, I'm willing to do all these things. So that's the food thing. Also, I don't drink caffeine. And that's because caffeine is kind of hard on your hormones. And I don't drink alcohol because alcohol is so hard on your body and your detox pathways. And my detox pathways just do not have the capacity to be detoxing alcohol and all these other things right now. So I don't drink alcohol these days. Okay, so that's the food. And then, And then the next category is nervous system. So the nervous system, I don't know when I learned what the nervous system was, because it must have been a while from before I learned actually what the nervous system was. And I wish that I wish I had a video of me from years ago of somebody asking me to define the nervous system, because I don't even know what I thought it meant before I learned what it actually meant. So your nervous system, if you don't know what the nervous system is, think of it as your body's way of perceiving the world around you. So your body perceives so many things around you from the world, and it has to make sense of it somehow. And your nervous system is basically the little feelers out in the world of determining if there's a threatening situation or what's going on around you and how to respond. That's my layman terms explanation for the nervous system. And my nervous system became quite dysregulated as a result of all these things that I was going through. So for my nervous system, things that I do to take care of my nervous system, all the things that I've already gone over make a huge difference in my nervous system. So getting good sleep, getting nourishing food in my body, removing all the endocrine disruptors, detoxing heavy metals and mycotoxins, those are all very helpful for my nervous system, but that only does so much. So this is why when I say treating the root cause, if I were to just treat the mold and not address my nervous system, I would not have gotten anywhere. Treating your nervous system is such a huge component of this. So things that I do to help my nervous system, I've talked about this in a previous episode, but I do something called EFT tapping, which is tapping on different parts of your body to signal to your body that it's safe. I do legs up the wall and listen to sound baths. I go to a lot of sound baths in person, as long as they're not burning incense and stuff that makes my body have an allergic reaction. I have been going to physical therapy, which is helping my nervous system because I have mast cell activation syndrome, MCAS, and because I have hypermobility. My body senses threats if I'm not holding up my body in the right way and using the right muscle groups to interact with my environment around me. So physical therapy is huge for my nervous system. Limiting screen time, spending more time in nature, getting tons of rest, tons and tons and tons of rest. I don't just mean sleep, but I mean whatever makes you feel recharged, whatever helps you feel good and grounded is a form of rest. Sometimes for me, that means painting a room in my house. Sometimes for me, that means laying on the couch and staring at the ceiling. Sometimes that means knitting. It can be anything. But whatever it is for you, whatever rest means to you, make sure that it actually makes you feel grounded and ready to take on more stressors. Something that really helps me with this that I hate doing is acupuncture. Acupuncture, to be honest, I stopped going a couple of weeks ago. I stopped going to acupuncture because, I don't know, I just hate it. but it's so good for me. It really, really helps regulate my menstrual cycles, but I just hate it and I should go again. But I hate going. So that's one that I know really helps me, but I stopped doing it. I used to go every week consistently, every single week. And I'm just a little bit burnt out right now, so I stopped going, but it's very important. And then for me, lots of cuddles and physical affection. Cuddles, weighted blankets, things physically that I can feel comforted go such a long way for my nervous system. Like a huge, huge long way. And I talk about this in a previous episode about how maybe that means that I'm not feeling safe in my body. And I think it's normal for humans to want physical comfort, and to feel warmth of another human being is really important part of your health. So nervous system is key. There's a lot of vagus nerve exercises you can do. There's different types of practices you can do to help with vagal tone. And I am doing some of those things. Breath work is really good for nervous system. Any kind of vibrations you can expose your body to. So things like crystal bowl healing, those have vibrations, like the noises that they make. There's a vibration that you can feel just from being in a crystal bowl from a sound bath and things like that. So exposing yourself to as many nervous system regulating activities as possible. And another thing in this category is barefoot grounding. I try to do this every day. During lunch, I will eat my lunch outside with bare feet in the grass, in the sun. Every day for lunch, I try to do that. And when I'm consistent with that, it really does big things for my body. I can't explain it. I don't know if science can explain it. Well, there's some science around barefoot grounding, like putting your bare feet in the grass, because the earth has electrical something in it, and that makes a difference with the electrical something in your body, and I don't know what else. It could be woo-woo, it could be science. I don't really care. Like with all these things, I don't really care if it's proven or not, because even the things that are proven half the time don't work for me. And then half the time the stuff that's not proven does work for me. So to me, I don't really care if science backs it up or not, because I'm always an anomaly anyway. So for barefoot grounding, I do notice for me it helps. And I also don't care if it's placebo effect, because like I said, who cares? If it's helping, it's helping. So barefoot grounding outside is good for your nervous system. That helps me. Meditation, breath work, journaling. I do that every day. Well, not journaling every day, no. But every night before I go to bed, I listen to a meditation of some sort, or I'll do a breath work exercise, something like that. And I do try to journal regularly. If I do like a gratitude journal every night, that's usually really helpful for me. But that's just like a lot. And so all these things that I'm listing, like I do all of these things, so it really adds up, and then eventually I get burnt out. So I don't do journaling every night, but if you do none of these things and journaling every night sounds like a fun thing for you to do, then try it. Like nothing's stopping you from trying that. And for me, that is like a part of my spiritual healing. This podcast is a huge part of my spiritual healing too, because it's letting me get out my story and my narrative on my own terms. And it makes me feel really understood when other people are listening to this and sending me messages that they appreciate what I've said, or that what I've said has resonated with them or meant something to them. Like that's so hugely helpful for my nervous system, just to know that how I think and feel and what I've experienced can be helpful for someone else. That alone is healing for me. So if this has helped you and you haven't sent me a message or something, let me know that you appreciate it, because that makes a big difference for me in my healing journey. Just knowing that what I'm sharing is resonating with people, and that what I've gone through is not for nothing, and that other people are connecting with it, that it does make a huge difference for me. But even if nobody listened to this podcast, it still is helping my nervous system, because it's helping me organize my thoughts. And such a huge part of my healing process is me unlearning the narratives and the unhealthy thought patterns that were holding me back previously. And that brings me to my next category, which is trauma therapy. I have learned so much in trauma therapy this past year, and Nothing terrible has happened to me that I'm like unpacking in trauma therapy. I've had a really good life. I'm so lucky. I've been really, really privileged in so many ways to have so much in my life. And I still grew up with so much trauma that my nervous system picked up from the world around me, even though I had a loving family. I had financial security. Like we had so much when I was growing up, and I still have all this childhood trauma. It's not because anything happened to me or that anybody did anything wrong. It's just because the way my nervous system is and the way my environment was, the way that I grew up happened to instill in me these thought patterns that ended up being really unhealthy for me in the long run. And nobody specifically taught me to think in this way. Nobody specifically is at fault for me becoming this way. It's a lot of societal stuff, and it's a lot of it just happened. So it's not anybody's fault. But personally, I believe that it is my responsibility to do something about it because it's my own nervous system, it's my own narratives. I want to unlearn the things that were instilled in me that I didn't really get a say in. So people pleasing, fawn response, that whole episode that we did, and definitely more to come. Like I am learning how to trust my own experience in my body. I'm learning how to not gaslight myself. I'm learning how to honor my emotions even if they don't feel justified. I'm learning how to honor my needs and speak up for myself. All of those things have been incredibly transformative in my healing journey, not just from a spiritual sense, but also from a physical sense. So, and there's tons, and there is research coming out about the correlation between people pleasing and autoimmune disease. And 80% of all autoimmune disease is in women. Did you know that? Because when I learned that, I was outraged. 80% of all autoimmune disease is in women. That's crazy. Why are we not talking about that? So that's something that we will talk about. There's a correlation between people-pleasing tendencies and autoimmune disease. Autoimmune disease and people who put other people's needs before their own. Autoimmune disease and people who are always worrying and taking care of others. Like these are things that we should talk about, because if that's not telling you that you might benefit from revisiting some of the narratives in your head, I don't know what will. Like for me, it's been so healing to unlearn these unhelpful thought patterns, the things that I used to keep to myself and tell myself was no big deal, and just allowing other people to get their way, allowing other people's needs to essentially be more important than my own. That was actually harming my health because my actual emotions had no outlet. And when I would intellectualize all my emotions, so basically having to rationalize whether any emotion that I felt was valid to be felt, and what that would sound like is me feeling an emotion that maybe wasn't super valid or wasn't justified. And in my head, I would be like, well, that's crazy. So you're not going to feel that. That's not okay. And it was taking a toll on me. So trauma therapy has been incredibly helpful for me to unlearn the unhelpful thought patterns, unlearning the unhelpful narratives, giving myself way more grace. I was so hard on myself. If I wanted to take a rest day, like that would mean something about me. If I wasn't the best at work, what was that saying about my character? Like everything that I did in the world was tied to my identity. I told you this in the first podcast episode. Like I didn't even want to start the podcast because I was afraid of being judged. I didn't want to be that person who started a podcast. It was like, oh, of course you started a podcast. Like everybody has a podcast. So what? Like this is my life. I get to do whatever I want. This is my podcast. I get to do whatever I want. But I went so much of my life feeling so afraid of doing the wrong thing and so afraid of what it would mean about me because I tied everything that I did to my identity and my character. And I didn't want to mess up anything because what would that say about who I am? And that stems from me not feeling secure enough in who I am to just do whatever I want and know that who I am is good and who I am is what I like. It is what it is. Like I now feel a lot more confident in who I am. And so if I do a podcast and a bunch of people judge me for it, and maybe I screw it up, maybe it's a terrible podcast, I still believe that who I am is good. And I know that I have good intentions. And I know that I'm a good person. And I know that I have a big heart and I'm caring and I'm a good friend and all these things about me. I know those things to be true, regardless of if I have a podcast that people think is stupid. But before therapy, I don't think I had that confidence. I think maybe I thought I had that confidence, but I definitely didn't. And I still don't have that confidence enough. And I still have a long way to go. Like I still am so afraid of judgment in so many ways. And I'm still really scared every time I go to post another podcast episode. I'm afraid of what people are going to think of it. I don't have this limitless confidence yet in who I am and my actions. I'm still afraid that people are going to misunderstand me, and that might say something about who I am as a person. And I still am afraid that my actions are going to define me and be interpreted as a representation of my character. And that's so much pressure. It's so much pressure to put on yourself. So I'm unlearning a lot of that, and that's making a huge difference. Okay, and the final category of self-care practices that I've been doing is lipedema care. So I talked about this in a previous episode, and I'm definitely going to bring a special guest on the podcast one day to talk about lipedema with me because I think it's a really fascinating topic. But I have lipedema, and it's basically this really dense fibrotic tissue that looks a lot like cellulite. And the thing about lipedema is that the research and the scientists and all the stuff out there says that there's nothing you can do about it. All of the stuff out there says that it's a progressive disease, and the only thing you can do is prevent it from progressing, but that you can't get rid of it or reduce it without surgery. And as you may know by now, when somebody says that something is impossible, I don't believe it. Not only do I not believe it, I love to challenge it. So if somebody says lipedema is a progressive disease and you can't do anything about it, I am not the type of person to just sit there and say, oh, well, I guess there's nothing I can do. I'm the type of person that I say, there's no way that's true. I'm going to prove you wrong. And I've done it. I have reduced my lipedema. I have reversed a lot of my lipedema, which according to a lot of the science is supposedly impossible, but it's not because I've done it. And I know other people who've done it too. So some of the things that I've been doing for my own lipedema that help is that I wear compression all the time. This is almost 24/7. I'm wearing a form of medical grade compression. I have it on right now. I'll show you guys. If you're watching the video, you can see like I have black leggings basically on, and I just wear them like under my clothes. So I wear compression leggings all the time. Compression is really helpful for lipedema. It's also helpful for POTS. That's the postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome that I have some symptoms of. It's really good for blood flow. So if you have any kind of blood pooling or swelling in your lower legs, and it's good for lymphatic flow. I also do a lot of things for my lymphatic health. I talked about that earlier in the detox section, but all of the things that I do for my lymphatic health, like there's something called the Big Six to help get your lymph activated in the morning. I'm in the Lymph Love Club online. It's an online community that was started by my incredible lymphatic drainage massage therapist. And that online community is super cool, really informative. There's virtual lymph classes that we do, and that online community is really cool, very educational to help you be educated about your lymph and your body. Your lymph is so important, and getting the lymph flowing is so helpful for lipedema. So I do compression. I really manage all of my lymphatic health. That includes dry brushing. It includes the rebounding on that little trampoline. Just getting lots of movement in the day, like getting lots of walks, doing stretching, making sure that your body is getting movement. Even me just sitting here recording this podcast without moving is not great for my lymphatic health. But as soon as we're done, I'm going to go on a walk. So I do weightlifting 3 days a week, and that has been hugely transformational for my health. And I'll probably go into that in more detail as well, because I never used to exercise consistently, but lifting weights has given my body a reason to need glucose. It's like all of the blood sugar problems that I was having before. I really wonder if all the blood sugar problems that I was having in my body had to do with the lack of movement. I used to be working all the time. I was working for so many hours in a row without getting up. And I sometimes wonder if so many of my blood sugar problems would have been alleviated even without being aware of blood sugar. If I had just had some sort of strength training regularly in my life, I do wonder if that would have helped. But now that I do know about blood sugar and I've been working on blood sugar, I also do lift weights 3 days a week, really consistently with a trainer. I've been doing that for over a year now, and it's completely changed my body composition. It's really improved the lipedema. This is like really the first time that I have consistent exercise, and it's had so many dramatic benefits. It's had endless number of benefits in my life. Like, there's so many reasons that lifting weights consistently is so good for you, and it's been feeling really good to my body, but I'm also seeing my body change. I'm seeing the lipedema become less noticeable, and I'm seeing muscles where I've never had muscles before. It's making my body just feel not just stronger in the sense of strength, but stronger in the sense of resilience. Like, I feel less breakable. I feel more durable. It feels like if I were invited on a hike, I could go on the hike without being afraid that I'm going to like twist my ankle or like, slip and fall. I feel less clumsy. I have much better spatial awareness, and I feel a lot more confident in what I'm able to do and what my body's able to do. I get these 5-gallon glass jugs of spring water delivered to my house each week. And like before strength training, I definitely would not have been able to lift one of those myself. And now it's like easy. I can lift that. And I know that I'm lifting it with the right muscles involved because of physical therapy. So weightlifting has been huge for me. Like, that has allowed me to have so many aspects of my life make more sense. And so many of these other things, like getting good sleep contributes to a good workout. Getting good nutrition contributes to a good workout. So it gives me motivation to keep up all of these practices because I know that they're going towards something that then cascades into impacting the rest of the things. So I think that's everything. If you can believe it, I am doing all of these things most of the time, but this is not sustainable for somebody to do all the time. And I want to be really, really clear about that. It's not sustainable for me, and it's really just not practical or realistic for anybody to be doing these things. I'm not preaching about these things in an attempt to convince you to do all of them, but I do think everyone should have the option to be educated about where they could make improvements in their lifestyle or their environment or their health if that's what they want to do. So if you don't do any of these things, that's totally fine. But like I said, it's just so that you have options, so that you're aware of what the options are. It's just so that you're educated about what's out there and what's possible. So that's it for today's episode. If you've been enjoying listening to these, please subscribe on YouTube or follow on Spotify or Apple or wherever you're getting your podcasts. Your support means so much to me. If there were any topics that I covered today that you want to know more about or that you want a future episode to cover, let me know in the comments or send me a DM. I'm having so much fun with the podcast. I hope it's helpful for somebody. And I hope you guys continue tuning in and continuing to be a part of my journey. So thank you. I will see you next time.